keep your eyes. What this? So when Joseph is being sold to Egypt into slavery, the Bible turns to tell a different story, a family story, a dark story, yet an interesting story. Judah, who is a son born to Leah and Jacob, leaves his brothers and settles in Adullam. There, he finds a wife and he bears sons. The first son is called Er, like E-R. So he finds a wife, and the wife is called Tamar. So Er is wicked, and God puts him to death. The Bible doesn't tell us why he is considered wicked. We're just told the Lord puts him to death. Now, if you know about a Levite marriage, when someone dies and they had married, the brother to the deceased is supposed to give kids to the widow who has been left behind. And as the law would command, Judah asks the second son, who is named Onan, to give kids to Tamar. But what does Onan do? He takes what benefits him and decides he is not going to give Tamar kids because he knows very well they will not be considered his kids. But who is God? He kills him again. Why? Because the instruction was very clear. He was supposed to sire kids on behalf of his brother. Lakini mwanadamu ni mwanadamu tu. So Onan is also put to death. Now Tamar has been left behind, husbandless, childless, and at this point I think it's safe to say futureless as well. And Judah is now afraid because if according to the Levite marriage again, he says that Shelah, who is the younger brother, should again take Tamar the widow and sire kids for his brothers, he doesn't know whether the Lord is going to strike or not. But regardless, he still has to make a decision. Now, two things are put into consideration. One, Judah is afraid for his family. Two, Shelah is still very young. So Judah asks Tamar as a widow to return to her father's house and wait until Shelah is grown. But also looking at it from the other side, Judah is actually afraid because two of his sons have already died and they were both married to Tamar. At this point, we can also say Judah is seeing Tamar as a risk to avoid less of a responsibility he should take care of. Tamar goes back to her father's house and she waits. Time passes, the boy grows, but the promise that Judah made is never actually brought to fulfillment. But things take a different turn. Judah's wife passes, and after the mourning, Judah decides to go to Timnah and shear his sheep. Tamar gets wind of the idea that Judah is going to Timnah to shear his sheep. And now it becomes clear in her mind that the justice that was promised to her is not going to be given. She now realizes that Shelah is grown and the promise is never going to be kept. What does she do? She takes off her widow's garments and goes and sits by the road to Timnah. She covers her face with a veil. And while Judah is on his way to Timnah, he thinks this is just a normal harlot who is just seated and waiting for someone to just come and have sex with them. Judah approaches her and asks, "Can I have you?" And what does Tamar do? As any other sex worker would do, they ask for a pay. Judah wants to know what it will take for him to have Tamar. And he says he's going to give her a goat. But Tamar asks for a pledge so that before the goat comes, she has something to hold on to. Judah, without realizing, he gives away what should be his identity. He hands over his signet, the cord, and his staff. Unknowingly or knowingly, we could say, because these things are happening at the time when we are not there. But as Judah gives them away, Tamar takes them with no intention to blackmail Judah. As fate would have it, Tamar conceives. She goes back to her father's house. She puts back on her garments of widowhood and she waits. You need to realize that Tamar has been waiting in this story for more than any person can wait. After it is known that Tamar has conceived and Judah gets the message that Tamar is now pregnant in her father's house, of course he is mad. Anyone who knows about culture, or let's just say about morals, knows that if a widow conceives in their father's house, it's more of a big deal than if a virgin conceives in their father's house. So Judah calls for the death of Tamar. His judgment is quick, impulsive, publicly, and it's like giving shame to Tamar, you know? And as Tamar is being brought out to face her death penalty, she comes with the cord, the staff, and the signet. She says, "This belonged to the father of my child." And when the word gets to Judah, he speaks the one sentence that will cost him everything. He says, "She is more righteous than I am." Not perfect. He doesn't even say innocent. He says, "She is more righteous than I." I would think he said this because Tamar chose to go and seek what she could not be given: the justice, the responsibility to bear a child, you know. And considering the Levite law of marriage, Judah was never to touch her again, and he did not. And because time moves, it is time for Tamar to give birth. She is bearing twins. The first hand comes out, and the midwife ties a scarlet ribbon on it, marking the firstborn. But when the kids are born, guess what happens? The other one, who is not marked, comes out first. So the two boys are named Perez and Zerah. Perez was the one who came out first, but did not have a scarlet ribbon tied around their hand. At this point, we all know that this is a story that God refuses to erase. This is a lineage that God refuses to put an end to it. And now from Perez comes the Lion of Judah, an ancestor of Jesus. And that is Scripture Unheard, stories we skip and scriptures that remain, the almost forgotten pages of the Bible.